Well, hello, Ian and Meredith. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having
Hi.
us.
I'm so excited to have this conversation for many reasons. And I'm going to start off first by saying, Ian, you're somebody that I have admired for many, many years. I think when I first met you, you were in this mastermind group that I had just joined that I didn't feel like I was ready to be a part of just yet. And you were doing this segment called Monday Night Live. And I was completely floored by your performance. You're probably one of the best interviewers I've ever seen. I would really come on every Monday when you would do the interview. And then since they've changed that, to be honest, I'm not as dedicated and committed. So that's how much I've been admiring you from afar. And so it's such a great pleasure to have you on today. And even more of a pleasure to have Meredith on here too, because a lot of what we talk about on this show is health. And health not being this static state that we're trying to achieve in the far off future where it's dependent on our weight and our BMI and being absent of dis-ease, but instead what I believe health is a beautiful balance between the relationship we have with our body, the relationship we have with others, and then the relationship that we have with ourself. So before we begin, I want to welcome you one more time to the show, and then also ask you, super curious as to why relationships is something that is important to you and something that you help men harness much stronger so that they become the irreplaceable man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us again. That Monday Night Live got like my podcast. I mean, I don't know if it's career. Like it kicked me off on this journey of podcasting, and every one of those episodes, I got good feedback, and I thought it was the worst thing ever. I did a terrible job. So really though, what I started doing, and I think this would be helpful to the audience, was, and American attest this, is I started applying my discipline and obsession over like how to ask questions, how to navigate. I'm a huge Howard Stern fan, so I really and he's the best interviewer possible. So I started understanding how he lets people just go wherever they want, but he's always there with them and he always has a question for them wherever they take him. And so I was fascinated with that, and I wanted it to be more of the human's experience versus like, okay, question one, question two, question three, question four,
Right.
and this just beautiful open conversation like Howard has, like you're just a fly on the wall. So it's like applying the already natural skills and talents and habits that you have to something that you're interested in, and then setting standards for that and leveling yourself up. And then that launched into hosting a very large real estate podcast called Real Estate Rockstars, because I interviewed Pat on that little Monday Night Live podcast. The next morning I texted Pat and said, hey, I'm curious about how you operate a giant podcast. Can I just sit in with you? And like the next day, Tuesday, he said, yeah, come on today at 10 a.m. We had 4 interviews. Pat left in the first 10 minutes of the first interview. I had 4 hours of interviews. He texted me and said, you got it. You're fine. And I'm freaking out. And so like my own self-sabotage and self-criticism was trying to win as best as possible. And I had the mentor that we had in that networking group and Pat saying, you're doing a great job. Here are some, course corrections, some tips on how to be better. And I just didn't take those personally. I took them as really good criticism. Right. And I said, all right, how do I apply these? Because I want to earn these mentors' time. And I didn't want to take that for granted, because I knew as a future mentor of people that I wanted to make sure that that karma was good from the mentors that I had. So I just want to give a context around that. That led to an increase in listenership on Real Estate Rockstars. That led to me meeting some incredible people. That led to me being on stage at a podcast convention where everybody had their own podcast except for me. And I'm speaking on stage about how to take over someone else's very large podcast. Then that led to my own podcast. And so there's probably 500-600 episodes that I've done. And it all started with that. Right. So I appreciate it, because in my mind, I was horrible, terrible. Right. Like no one would ever want to listen to me. And you're like, I just jumped on there to hear you. So that's super cool to hear that, the dichotomy between that.
Yeah, true story. And it's so interesting what you're saying, because what I'm picking up from you is that you cared so much around how you showed up in order to serve others. And especially when we're given opportunities for something that big, right? Oftentimes we're thinking about, well, what's in it for me, or what can I do to receive? But instead, what I'm hearing you say is, what can I do to give? And I think that's probably maybe one of the reasons why you feel like it's not good enough, because you're always striving to give more and more and more value. So I love that. I resonate with that. And so Meredith, is he always like that? Is this what you see as well? Oh, Ian.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
He talked about Howard Stern, and listening and learning, constantly learning, I think is Ian's like motto. And so yes, I see it all the time in everything we do. It's like something so minuscule will spark something in him. I won't even pick up on whatever it might be, and he'll go on a research craze, and all of a sudden he knows everything about this one topic. And I think that also kind of propelled his own podcast and podcasting career, because it was like seeking information, but also to be able to share it with others. Like we sit around the dinner table, or, in the car, and he's telling us about all these things that I'm like, where, forerunners and the motor and the sound and some things. And I'm like, how do you know all of this?
It's a channeling of the gifts that are innate, right? So like, if you put me back in elementary school with severe ADD, dyslexia, and an OCD, I'm a bad kid that's never going to make it.
Right.
But like, my dad cultivated this strength in me to say, you're born with this, man. Figure out how to use it to your advantage. None of the stuff you have is a disadvantage. To the outside, when you compare yourself to others, and this is kind of like the weight / BMI / body image, world too. When you compare yourself to others, there's always going to be something that you want that somebody else has.
Right.
Or when you compare yourself to others, you're going to fall short on something because of what your mark is of comparison. So I stopped looking at other people and like, why, like, that person is so dumb. Why'd they get a better grade than me on a test? And it was, well, I'm just not a great test taker. And also I wasn't studying, which was because I didn't care about the information. Like, I don't care about 18th century romantic literature. I could care less. I don't care. I don't want to study it. I'm not going to do well on the test. It is what it is. But I have this fascination with learning and this like this curiosity craving. I just want to know about things. So like, why would I not research something that I'm interested in? Even if it's something simple, like, now I want to start doing overlanding and off-roading with a 4Runner. And I've always researched Jeeps, and I know so much about Jeeps, and now I want a 4Runner, and I'm like, I don't know a lot about 4Runners, so I'm going to research the different generations and the different engines and the different transmissions and the different axles, because it's all applicable. But if you go and look at other people's 4Runners, you're like, guy's got $100,000 in it plus the cost of the truck. Do I want that? No, I'm going to start with like a $10,000 12, 15-year-old 4Runner, and I'll just start building from there as I learn more, because I think a lot of people like would just go out and buy the $100,000 jacked up souped up 4Runner and just go out there, but they didn't learn anything. And there's a gap between the two. It's like a lottery winner. You got this 4-figure mindset, and now you have an 8-figure bank account, but you have no foundation to support a 5, 6, or 7-figure mindset around money. So you have to build. That's what I think that like we do, is like we build the foundations to support the level that we want to go to, whether it's our business or our relationship. I mean, we started Men on Purpose and Irreplaceable Man I started it as accountability for me as a husband and a father and a leader. And then we started doing it as accountability for us, because you're on the mic, you're on camera, you can't hide from that. And people are going to know if you're holding back. So like, you have to figure out the lead indicators to get that lag measure that you're looking for. And if you don't do the work to get the lead indicators hit, the lag indicator won't be sustainable. And if it's not sustainable, then you're going to yo-yo. And that's why diet fads yo-yo, people's businesses yo-yo. It's because the foundations aren't solid enough to support that result that you're looking for. And the other piece of that is like, you're going to hustle and grind and get to a place where that's not sustainable, because you're either burning yourself out at the gym if you're trying to get that body, or you're crushing it in business, but your family life is suffering, or your relationships suffer because you're out here doing this, and there's no balance. So I feel like the research and the things that we do to set up the proper foundation creates a sustainable model.
I love that. I love that. And I think a big part of it too is just learning to be flexible and adaptable. And especially when we're super hyper focused on particular outcomes and goals, and then things don't go our way, life events happen, and then we just don't know how to manage that turbulence. And super interesting that you're talking about a strong foundation, because I actually believe that this foundation and just you being organized in terms of how you do anything is how you do everything is really what we start to see in other areas of our lives. And so coming back to just the dynamics that you guys have, which I love, by the way, I see the way you guys are together. Why was it important for you to start working with men, and specifically helping men become this fully responsible part of the relationship? And I had heard a little bit of what you were talking about on one of your YouTube videos this morning, and that's what you were saying, one of your mentors sharing that in order for you to really overcome a massive struggle in your relationship, you have to own 100% of the responsibility, which is super interesting because we would think two people, everybody's got 50% of the responsibility in order to move forward. But I'm super curious about that part. Why is that important?
I mean, I was failing miserably. And it, you know, I was learning from all these people that, like, I was taking all this advice and, you know, looking at people that had something I wanted, yet they weren't the people that I actually wanted to be. So I was modeling incorrectly, and it wasn't serving me. Maybe it was correct for somebody else. It just wasn't correct for me. And so I realized that, you know, if I'm going to get better, be better, do better, have better, I had to teach myself those skills. So what better way than to teach it to other people once I learned it, to hold me really accountable. And I figured that would put a lot of pressure on me to really know these things, like, intimately. And that would also then put an additional accountability on me to our relationship, because I've got people paying me to coach them. And I've had coaches in the past that were not congruent with, you know, their audio didn't match their video. And so, you know, I was adopting so many things from other people that weren't working for me. Yet I wasn't adapting those things, like you said earlier. I wasn't adapting those things to my life, my situation, my circumstance, my body, my marriage. And I also wasn't making space for who Mare was. I was just focused on fixing my relationship. And I know tons of guys that go out and hustle and grind just like they do in the professional world in their relationship. And there's never been a time where you ever heard somebody say, man, I'm like crushing my relationship right now. I'm like grinding the hell out of it. And it's amazing. Nobody does that. And so the professional me wasn't working in the personal me. Plus, I was disconnected from my authentic identity. I had no idea who I was. I was lost, and the money and the success was really my driver. And I didn't know how to balance both. And so I just committed to becoming the best version of me. And that's where Irreplaceable Man came in. It's like, the irreplaceable version of us is inside of us. We just have to figure out the stuff that got put on us, the armor, the protection methods, the traumas. We got to figure that out in a formulaic sense. And when we can remove it, then the real us is just there. It's standing there. You're just there. And you get to operate as the real you, and your relationship will benefit. And then there's a lot of depth in that, what I just said. However, that's the general overall or overview of how again, going back to sustainability, you can go to all these classes and courses, which I did, and I'd come back and I'm like, well, I'm growing. You're not growing. What's going on? Why is our relationship not better? But it was like, because you're not showing up as the guy that learned anything. You're going and learning, but you're not applying it here.
You were in very much in an information gathering stage and spitting it out at me, but not actually applying it. I think it had to start with you, right? Like, we all have to start with ourselves. You can't just say, oh, now it's magically better, or things are, you know, and that's where you were for a long time. It's like, I'm gathering this information, I'm taking it, and it wasn't
purposeful
at all.
No.
Right.
It wasn't.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between knowing something and then embodying something, right? And then coming back to just that point that you said about balance, because I think a lot of us just need to maybe understand what balance really means. And oftentimes when we think about balances, I'm giving equal amounts of energies to all the different areas of my life. But Is it really like that? Would you guys say that that is what balance is, especially balance in a marriage or balance in all of the things that are happening in your life that require the most attention at certain times, or when a life event comes up, for example? How do you harness a sense of balance at all times?
You struggle with that more than I do.
Yeah. Well, I think balance is for for me, I'd rather think of it as like being present. Like that's when you get balance, right? Is when when you are present in each scenario that you're in. And so I think that that took us some time to really figure out like our relationship in balance, and because we worked together for a long time, like
Right.
Desk to
desk to desk, face to face, many hours a day. And there was no balance. There was
no boundaries, no separation.
There was nothing. And so I think once we figured out the present, that's when balance kind of came in. You know, like
So
we're at
good.
the office, we're sitting at our desks. Now it is work time. This is what we're talking about now. You know, once we removed the, you know, late night computers in bed working, and, you know, instead of going out to eat with work colleagues or going to a work event, it was a date night for us. You know, I think that's where you get balance, is like how you are present in any scenario.
Oh, so good.
And that, I think that took us a while to figure out.
It took years.
Yeah,
it took years.
Right.
because it for a long time we could not separate anything, so there was no balance. We couldn't apply, you know, equal amounts to work and our marriage and
No.
our family, and it all kind of jumbled together. And so once we figured out how to be present in each scenario, I think that's how we achieved balance.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember though, what was fueling my fire was my insane insecurity that if I wasn't the best, if I wasn't top, you know, salesperson, if I didn't have this incredible business, if I couldn't brag about my numbers, if I didn't have all this cash coming in, who would I be? Right. And so I was caught between this identity of successful man, provider, and this whole other side to my life that I wasn't putting much effort into anyway, because it wasn't a conscious thought process like I'm just going to take this for granted. It was like, I only have so much energy, there's only so much time. If I don't have this, I don't think I can survive. But Mary will just hold on, and you know, she probably won't divorce me. And then, you know, I was like banking on that, but I was just lost. I was just wandering. I mean, I think I spent my 30s, like I'm 40 now. I think I spent my 30s wandering and trying to find that irreplaceable, authentic me, and that professional like lane that I really got lit up in and felt great about. And like we're there now. However, it took 10 years. It really
Absolutely.
did. And do we have amazing experiences and have 2 children in that time and have built all these cool businesses and make money and go on crazy trips? Yeah. And we almost got divorced. And, you know, our daughter suffered in the beginning because even when she was like, you know, between 0 and 1, because I was so focused on building our business and being the person that provided at a high level and had this big bank account that I didn't have time for anything else, and nor was I willing to make time for anything else. So
Right.
what that was doing was, and this is something that Mary and I talk about a lot in our podcast, is, or like we talk about it in the Irreplaceable Man community, and I have an exercise if anybody wants that, it's free,
Yeah,
called the
absolutely.
6 trust types. And so what I wanted to know was, but I'm doing the work now, and I'm showing up the way she wants, and I'm doing this, and a lot of people will think that they'll go, well, she told me to be home at 7, I'm home at 7. And she wants me to take the trash out, I take the trash out. And she wants me to help with the kids, and I'm helping with the kids. Like, why are we not connecting again?
Right.
And so I wanted to know, like, what's the formula there? Because everything, if you remove emotion, it's all a math problem. It's all a formula. There's a formula you're running to get the result you have. And there's a formula you need to run or changes to the formula to get the result you want. And so I wanted to figure out, like, I love math, I love engineering, I love figuring things out. So I just started building all these exercises back in like 2015, 2016 for myself. And then I created a coaching company out of it. And one of the ones for the trust was there are 6 trust types. Most people think there's physical and financial trust, but there's emotional, there's communication, there's reliability, and then there's oh my God, I just blanked on it.
And now I'm like, what did you say?
I will think of it. I completely blanked on it.
Emotional, reliability,
physical, financial, communication, reliability, and starts with a C.
Well, if you hadn't asked me, I would know. So let's just move on. And
Well, we will come up with it. I cannot believe I just blanked on it. But there are 6 trust types.
Yeah, and I think you're offering something for people to access that as well. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. You a link.
Yeah.
Just a quick little exercise to to illuminate and understand what formula you've been running to get the result that you have. Because a lot of guys will come to me and say, I'm doing everything she wants me to do. And I say, well, but your wife is still telling you to do it, which means she's still in her masculine, which means she's not going to connect with you.
Right.
And they're like, oh, my God, what is that?
It's going to come.
Keep going, and we'll think about it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that, because when we see a conflict in a relationship, everyone is always like, well, I'm doing all the things, and I've done this, and I've done all the things that she or he would expect of me, but we're not actually listening to what the person's needs are, right? We're not actually listening to what they want. We're actually operating and giving what we think that is right to give, or what they need, but we're not really giving them what they need based on what we're hearing from them. And so now that you're in this place and coming back to just this sense of balance, because I actually believe balance is this dynamic thing, that you're constantly seeking balance. Every single day you have to seek balance, because there's different things coming up in your life. And again, that's being in the ebb and flow of life. And so how are you able to, Ian, harness balance now that you've seen sort of what it looked like in the past, where you were so super hyper focused on success and on finances and really being that provider? What is balance looking like for you now? What has changed?
It's, by the way, it's competence trust.
Competence. All right.
Yeah. So honestly, balance for us, one of the formulas that we came up with was illuminate, eliminate, calibrate equals acceleration, right? So you don't have to grind and hustle. If you get that formula right, illuminate what's working, what's not working, eliminate the things that aren't working or aren't serving you, calibrate into things that are, and start to dial in what else you need to add to the formula to get the result, and acceleration happens naturally. So I honestly think that balance came from the elimination phase. And I think the elimination phase is the most crucial. You have to get rid of things that don't serve you.
Yes.
People, relationships, habits, mindset, language, environments. You've got to get rid of all those things, and you've got to be really honest with yourself. If you're hanging around, we hear it all the time, like you're the sum of, or you're the net worth of the 5 whatever people around you, and you can still be hanging out with really high net worth friends, and if they're having conversations about their wives that are really negative or disparaging or whatever, then that's not who you want to be around. You might stay because they're all wealthy and you want to be wealthy, but if you also desire to have a great relationship, then you need to surround yourself with people that are having conversations about great relationships that they have. So the elimination phase for us, even in the last year, has been massive. Like when we left LA back at the end of June and eliminated that environment and that piece of our lives, so much stuff just opened up. It's like we removed the bottleneck, and the universe goes, thank you, here you go, And not only that, externally, but the balance came from my internal balance and my peace, and just this freedom that I feel to align with what I'm truly meant to do, my true purpose. And even though my passion is personal development coaching and business coaching, and I love that stuff, like it just still wasn't aligned as well as it could have been. And I wasn't okay with just continuing down that road, not being happy, not being truly happy with it. So the elimination balanced me to a place where I sit here and I'm like happy every day, and I'm excited to build, and this great opportunity hit my plate that's like, 8-figure plus, and all these other people are coming out of the woodwork, and I'm having different conversations in my friendships, in my relationships. We don't have this piece between us that's causing resistance and tension. It's been removed, which was living in LA was challenging because we didn't have a lot of we didn't have any family around. It's much more expensive than here on the East Coast. You know, there was just all this pressure. And not to say that it was a bad thing, it wasn't. It just wasn't serving us as well as it could have. And so when we made the decision to move back to the East Coast, so much stuff freed up. And also we were able to, like, the lenses got clearer, and we were able to see things clearer. And like, if you read The Gap in the Game, which is a fantastic book, what we were operating in was the gap between where I knew I could be and where I was. And it was upsetting me. It was causing resistance and anger. Even though our business was doing well, the added pressure just of that environment just wasn't helpful. But now we operate in the gain, which is from back there to now, I've experienced all of these amazing things. And now without that added pressure, I can apply my 20% to get the 10x versus the 2x, right?
Absolutely.
And that's my experience, darling.
What? Stop.
Microphone.
No, thank you. I have it right here. Well, I think you answered that pretty well. I know.
This is the balance,
Yeah,
Mare?
What's that?
That's the balance.
That's the balance, yeah.
Yeah,
You
I think
answered that.
I'm hearing from you, and I sort of both of you are sharing this in almost different ways, but it almost seems that balance is really coming to the place of joy, where you're actually feeling happy and fulfilled, which means that maybe I spend 10% of my time socializing and the rest of my time on my relationship and my family, and that's what actually gives me balanced feeling and makes me feel happy and fulfilled. And I think we need to just come outside of that view that every single area of our life needs to be given the exact same amount of attention in order for it to be balanced, but instead asking, like you were saying, what can I eliminate, what can I remove to really just stop that suffering or any of that internal conflict that I'm experiencing in most of the time. Yeah.
And you have to know yourself, and that's the personal development journey, is getting to the core, to the irreplaceable version of you, the authentic you, without the societal pressures or the emotional traumas and all the things that you've experienced that run you. You know, they're automatic in your brain that run you. Figuring out the small micro pieces that trigger you, working through those, rewiring the brain, right? Neuroplasticity. And then just honoring yourself, because people ask me all the time, like, what's your evening routine like? What's your morning routine like? And I'll say, it's based on what I feel I need or what serves me best. You know, lately, Mary and I have just been laying in bed before our kids get up, listening to Abraham Hicks every morning, like probably for the last couple months. Every morning we wake up and I put an Abraham Hicks on.
Yeah.
And even that, we hear it differently because there's so much of the encumbrances that we put on the outside gone and eliminated, that we can hear it differently because the person hearing it is the authentic us, not the layered up us listening through like 3 different layers.
Right.
And so
good.
I'll say to people, like, at night, I'm not the guy that, you know, like reads a ton of stuff and does all these things like personal development, like doesn't watch TV. We put on dumb shows. Like last night we were watching people eating like the world's hottest peanut and watching them torture themselves. And we watch SWAT and we hang out with our kids, and probably a little too late, but you know, it's okay. And I just sit and I watch YouTube videos on things that I'm interested in, and I'm learning and I'm researching. Like before we left LA, you know, like part of that piece that my dad said is like, what are your innate gifts? How can you start to sharpen those? And what are the things that you know will make you successful in business and in your relationship that you need to adapt or adopt right now? And one of them was organization. That was not a strong point. But if you ask anybody today, like I'm uber organized and structured and detailed, and that came from practice. I'm not a great runner, and I know that I've got to start running in order to run a marathon. I gotta lace my shoes up first, and I've got to get out there and move my body and like get my calves in shape. Like I have to start small. So at night, what honors me is not obsessing about my business or working till 10 p.m. It's cutting off at 5 o'clock and saying, hey, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna eat dinner with the family, and we're gonna sit in the room together. We're gonna hang out, and I'm gonna watch videos that I'm interested in and learn, because I love being curious and learning, and I'm at peace with that.
Right.
Even if I know I could work more on my business, or I could do another email or another, lead magnet, or but like, I can't buy this time back. That's why we moved back to Baltimore. We cannot buy that time back.
Yes.
With our family, my parents, her sister lives here, our children with their grandparents. Nothing will buy that time back.
Right.
So we have that now.
I think also, like, for a long time we were caught up in routines.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, in the morning I wake up at 5:55, and for 6 minutes I do this, and then for 7 minutes I stretch, and then I do, you know, and there was this, like, and it becomes a chore instead of, like, you're like really feeling it and like in a flow, and it's bringing you peace and joy and setting you up for success that day. And I mean, we both have done this where we had these like strict morning routines that did not serve us. And even in the evening too, like it would be like, okay, we're going to read this book and we're going to do this. And there was, again, that goes back to being present in the moment. And we've, especially this summer and with our move and kind of releasing a bunch of stuff, we've found that being present is exactly where we need to be. And it doesn't have to be this coordinated, like, check off the list thing. Like, do we want to lay here for a little bit longer and listen to Abraham Hicks, or, you know, do we need to get up and walk? And it's like, what is going to serve you and your body and your mind and everything in that moment.
Oh, so good. Sounds almost like you're giving something to yourself so generously, right? Without really an expectation on the return. Whereas most of the time, whatever we do, even when we've set up a morning routine and we have this personal development routine, it almost feels like a duty because we said we're going to do it. We have to do it. We're holding ourselves so accountable to it, and we feel so bad if we don't do it. But what it sounds like, Mara, what you're sharing is that now you're almost choosing to be in the present moment and doing something for yourself without an expectation. It could be a walk. It could be listening to maybe an audiobook a little bit longer. I love that. Yeah, so
that's
powerful.
self-trust though. That's self-trust being really dialed in, where you know, like, I trust that I need a little bit more sleep, and then you don't have a little mind, you know, a little voice in your head that goes, you're lazy, you're a loser, you're breaking your commitments. Like, I had that before. You've had that.
Yeah.
Where now we're like, let's get up. Let's get up. Let's go get the kids up. Let's go for a walk. That serves us best. And then, or let's lay here and listen to 5 Abraham Hicks for an hour, and or, you know, whatever it might be. But there has to be joy in that, because if you go to bed doing the things you think you're supposed to do, yet you're not doing what you want to do. No, obviously, if you're going out and like doing meth or something, and you know,
there are healthy habits that you're, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
we have some
if Mary and I were
balance,
staying up drinking all night and like getting crazy and you know, couldn't get up in the morning, and like that wouldn't serve us. But sitting around and hanging out and playing games with our kids, or like watching TV with them, you know, our mornings are very structured, and they're also very unstructured. There is like one thing I learned with severe ADHD is that I have to give myself a list of things to do and tasks. I have to give myself a time frame to get it done in. I don't time block. I'm not going to say from 8:30 to 8:45 I do this, and then 8:40. Like, that doesn't work for me. And I beat myself up because for so many years, because it part of me liked that structure, and part of me was like, I'm not doing, that's not happening. Not happening. And then those two battled inside, and then I looked outside, and everybody else seemed to be time blocking every 15 minutes.
Right.
Oh, that guy's successful. Oh, he time blocked. Oh, he has a 2-hour morning routine. So I'll time block 15-minute increments, and I'll have a 2-hour morning routine. Why am I not a millionaire yet? Like, that doesn't work, because it has to be for you. Right. So in the morning, we know what we have to do. There's a 2-hour time span between us getting up, kids getting up, and getting in the car to go to school. And I know for a fact that my kids have structure. They get up, brush their teeth. They have to fuel their body with water. They have to fuel their mind with learning something. They have to give gratitude for what they're grateful for. And we have to understand what they're excited about for the day, every day. And they do their affirmations. And our 3-year-old, like Ellis, when she was 2, our daughter, spat off those affirmations. If I literally look at my son and say, I am, he'll go, smart, strong, confident, courageous. Like, he knows them. And that's what we're instilling. So between that 2-hour time period, both our kids are like us. They're easily distracted. So if we got up and we're like, in this 15-minute increment, we got to get this done, they would hate that. And so what we do is we flow with it. So usually in the car, we'll go, all right, guys, breakfast, they want to watch TV. Fine. But you got to learn something. You got to feel that brain. So we watch Colossal Questions or Cranium on YouTube, and the videos are like 4 minutes, and every video they're staring at it, learning something about the body, about the solar system, how deep's the ocean. Like my daughter learned about the Mariana Trench today, and that it's 28,000 feet deep. It's the deepest part of the ocean. Dad, did you know that? I didn't know that. And we do that together because we're building their curiosity to learn and their habit of constant learning, not constant like, I have to do it so I can look good in front of others. It's, I want to do this for me because I like this and I want to learn about things. And so we have to be in that delicate balance of like, you know, like with working out, you're not doing this to make yourself look better at the beach or for your spouse. You're doing this for you. And if you don't or can't do this for you, or you're not at that place, then that's where the personal development work comes in, to clear out and eliminate that part that's holding you back from saying, I choose for me, and this is what I want my body to look like.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So good. So good. I love everything that you said. And I'm sure everyone's listening like, man, what a power couple. They work together. They're making all these awesome things happen together. Like I want to, I want to know what they're doing. And then earlier you said that you got to this point where I think that's where Irreplaceable Man was born from, this place where you also came to a point where you almost called it quits on your marriage. And so this is the stuff that a lot of us don't want to talk about. And what I love is that you guys share this so openly. And if I'm so curious, if we were to go back in that moment in time, what happened to bring you to that point where you wanted to call it quits maybe? And then what brought you back together?
Look at me.
This is the quit caller.
The quit caller. What?
I was willing to just let it be stagnant forever because it was convenient for me because I had food stocked and I had laundry done. So like I was massively selfish.
Yeah. That was the catalyst for a lot of change, and it could have gone one of two ways. And so we had a baby, and Ian was just kind of like, okay, bye.
Right.
Totally
Not present, but yeah, very disconnected. We are still working together, so I'm primary caregiver for the baby. Still working a lot, and Ian is just being a drill sergeant, and it was terrible. And you remember this better than I do, but he probably said something. No, I know he said something stupid because he had a knack for saying the wrong thing in any scenario.
And he's a man.
So I think he said something. Yeah. So he said something stupid. And my response was, are you the kind of man that you want your daughter to attract? Like, would you be happy if your daughter came to you and said, my husband just said this to me? You would lose your mind. You would not be happy. And that sparked a years-long journey that it took us a while to get back to like a foundational level where we knew what we were working towards and what we were working on. I think that was the catalyst, was having a baby and really understanding how that put a spotlight on how disconnected we were and how much the dynamic had really shifted into this into kind of a power dynamic where Ian kind of held this power with words and just being like, okay, bye, because he didn't have to worry about feeding the baby or being up with the baby, or he was just like, yeah, I'm out, and so that sparked it. Yeah,
very accurate.
And it took a while for both of us too, because then we got to a place where Ian was in his information gathering stage, and that also created a power dynamic because he would be, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, like you should be doing exactly what I'm doing. If I was reading a different book, he would be like, why are you reading that book? That's a waste of your time. You should be reading that. And there was a lot of we had to figure out a lot through the process, and we reached a point where we I mean, obviously we're in it now too, where, you know, we figured out what works best for us individually in terms of growth and learning and all of that. And we found a respect for each other in how we're approaching things. You know, what works for Ian might not work for me, but that doesn't mean it's good or bad or anything. You know, it's just, we have different approaches. We're not the same person, and just because we're married, it doesn't have to be the same thing. And that's been a huge kind of revelation, and also like foundational aspect of our relationship is like that mutual respect for what the other person is experiencing, you know, and not trying to correct it or solve it for the other person, which is something else that we had to overcome was, you know,
I'm a coach, I know.
Yeah.
That's what my
that I do this for a living. I know what you should be doing. Yeah, that kind of, I'm like, no, I'm not your ideal client. So how would you know? You know? So
but you have to look at the foundational pieces of that, which I think are really important for people to know listening to this, is that I was massively insecure, putting on a very confident front. I was desperate for love, attention, affection, approval. And Mare was the partner that was like making our lives work. And I was scared that if she wasn't doing everything to build her, grow her, do what she needed to do to be the best version of her, that one, I was going to lose her. And two, she might fail our family. And I'm not confident enough to take this whole thing on. I don't know what to do with this baby. You know, like I was massively disconnected because I felt unloved and I felt unapproved and unappreciated and taken for granted. All fake shit, by the way, all fake, like made up in my head so that I wouldn't get hurt if she left. That's it. That's like, that's what most guys are going through. Their whole bravado, their attitude, their anger is all just a protection method because the person that they're married to is the person that could hurt them the most.
Right.
And if like Mare really left, it would have crushed me. Like I wouldn't know what to do without her, but I was going to pretend like I didn't need her because if she did leave, at least I had primed that pump. Right. We're like, whatever. I didn't put the effort in anyway. Of course she was going to leave. Whatever. I'll just go get another girlfriend. But what really I wanted to say is I have no idea who I am. I am scrambling. I'm struggling every morning. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have this kind of relationship. I don't want to be doing this for work anymore. Like, and so there was this, like, it just started inching together. It's like a ratchet strap, like slowly but surely it started coming together. And we started repairing those 6 items of trust. We never had a physical or financial distrust. So we didn't have those two. But competency and reliability, communication and emotional trust, destroyed.
Right.
We're actually a product and a result of, you know, the work to say, regardless of what's happened in the past, if you both are willing to work on it, it can be resolved. It can be refired or reignited. But it takes a ton of work and a ton of commitment and dedication to not being the old you and bringing that into that present moment and reacting the same way you did, or you're just going to multiply or compound the reliability trust or the competency trust that your partner doesn't believe that you actually can do this thing that you say you're going to do. So now instead of you not doing it and breaking the trust, now you're saying you're going to do it, not doing it, and you're lying to them. So you're compounding that. And that's the same thing that happens with people when they go to the gym.
Right.
They're like gung ho, January 2nd, and I'm fired up. I got my pre-workout. I bought $1,000 worth of stuff from Lululemon. I got the gym membership. I got some accountability partners. And by January 18th, life happened. You know, I'll go next week.
Absolutely.
This is great. Well, you know, it's been 2 months, but it's okay.
Well, it's like Ian and I talk about this a lot. Because for a long time it was why aren't you noticing that I'm different? And I'm like, it's not like all of a sudden this big gesture and everything's better and changed. It's these micro moments, right? It's, you know, I could have a bad day or, you know, be frustrated with something, and it's all in how Ian chooses in that moment to respond to me. And those are the micro moments that like I think set us up is like making each one of us making that choice to react differently or handle a scenario differently that like really started to rebuild that foundation. And it is just like going to the gym too. It's like what's the first step? Well, I actually need to drive to the gym. Okay, did I do that today? Yes. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to walk in.
Right.
And then the next time I'm going to go to the, like, those micro moments build those habits and create the overall, like, lead you to the overall success because you've built on top of everything versus just going all in. Like, you're not going to build a skyscraper just by plopping down a bunch of things. You're going to you're going to grade the land and you're going to build the foundation and you're going to do all of those things first to get to this big skyscraper. And it takes time. And I think that we also, in like an instant gratification society and world that we live in, like, Ian's, well, I've changed. Why do you not? Or even me when I'm like, well, I read this book now. Aren't you happy? Like, none of that worked because, we weren't taking consistency. There weren't the right steps in place. It was just this big grand gesture but that doesn't help anything. That's one time.
Yeah. Right. There has to be a dedication. We took divorce off the table, right? It was like, you can't just throw divorce out there. I want a divorce, because that just gives you an out to not have to work on yourself, because you are the marriage. The two partners are the marriage. So we like to think about it. Friendship is the first level. Are you actually friends with this person you're married to? Do you like being around them? Do you want to be with them? Do you want to hang out with them? What's your partnership look like? Do you want to have this person as a partner?
Right.
And then there's a marriage that's created from that. Mm-hmm. You don't work on your marriage. You work on your friendship and your partnership, yourself first, then friendship, then partnership with your spouse. We also stop caring about what people thought from the outside. I mean, look, we're sitting in our kid's bedroom because it's the quietest place in this house with bunk beds behind us, like, who cares? The information is the only thing that matters. And so, there's this, we were talking about this morning, this morning, the 5 things. Remember Howard was talking to that guy?
Yeah.
So, like, if you say to somebody, why are you married? And if you take out, this is really important. Somebody's gonna cry on this one. Somebody's gonna get crushed on this one. If you take out love, kids, expenses, companionship, and longevity, if you take out those 5 aspects of your marriage, are you still with this person? Because you don't need to be married to have any of those. You don't need to be married to have kids or split expenses or love somebody or have companionship or longevity. You can be friends with somebody for a very long time, not be married. Like, marriage is a piece of paper, and it's created by the two partners creating who they are and evolving. So if you take those 5 aspects out of the running, what's left? And I guarantee you that 90% of people that are married who don't have an incredible relationship will be stumped on that one. They go, nothing. We don't do that much together. I actually wouldn't even be friends with this person if it was, if I met them today versus 20 years ago.
Right.
If we didn't have kids and all these bills and all these expenses, I probably would roll out. And so that plays into the marriage and the everyday, like, dealings with each other. That animosity, that resentment plays into that. So you have to start letting go or eliminating all of those things that are binding up or encumbering the marriage and the partnership. And that's what we committed to. Plus, we took divorce as like a card, an ace in the hole off the table. You can't just throw divorce out there. And if we take divorce off the table, what do we need to do to have a great marriage? But not even that. It was really about, what do we need to do to actually want to be in this marriage and have a model marriage for our children to see, and for others who look at us to say, well, they're not faking it. They really did the work. They really put the work in. I want to learn from them. I want to grow. And it's not about just being a model. It's like, do we actually want to waste this time, this precious time that we have on this planet, fighting all the time and sleeping in separate places? Like, I don't want to waste that time, because if so, then we're just going to roll out and just go do something else. Right. But if we're committed to each other, then we have to remove all of the constrictions and restraints on that we've put on the marriage or allowed to be put on the marriage. And when those remove, what's left? Oh, nothing. Oh, okay. Well, we need to build this foundation, like Mary was saying, micro pieces. You can't buy jewelry. You can't buy a car. You can't buy a house. You can't go on a sick vacation. You're not going to buy your way back into those trust factors that have been broken.
Good.
You know, it's not.
So good. I think it's like a mic drop right here. That was so good. And you know, I think what a lot of us forget too. So you meet the person, and then you have this one layer of relationship that you have with the person because that's your intimate relationship. And then life events happen, and then you put on another layer of relationship. Maybe there's a death in the family, maybe one of the parents passed away. So you experience that together. And then you have kids, and then there's another layer in the relationship. And we don't tend to divide these and give them separate attentions, I find. And especially, let's say in your circumstance, you guys are working together. So how do you differentiate then between, let's say, drawing boundaries or having boundaries between work stuff and then marriage stuff and then being parents? Like, where do you see that dividing line? Or are you able to sort of ping pong back and forth from sort of each wearing each hat?
I think now we've gotten to like kind of like a ping pong, but that's taken a long time. And that's been creating boundaries around when and where we talk about work, or, if it's on a date night, it's not going to be all about the kids. Right. It's listening to each other, talking to each other about our own experiences and things like that. It took a long time to understand those boundaries, especially when we worked together full time for 10 hours a day. There were zero boundaries, and that created a lot of problems. And so I think the small boundaries that we put in place, like, I used to have notes all over the house with Ian about like when he could talk to me about certain things. Like if we're getting ready in the morning, it's not time to talk about work. Or, as soon as your alarm goes off, you're not rolling over and tapping me on the shoulder and asking me about an email or if something was done yesterday, or, if none of that. Like it's again, and we talk a lot about this because this has really, I think, helped us, is those micro changes again. And like, okay, well, we're taking work off the table until we get to the office. We can talk about work until we leave the office. And then, we used to be in real estate, so that's a 24/7 business. So like, okay, we'll check in one more time in the evening if we have a contract or something that needs to happen. And then we're done. Once we go to bed, there's none of that. And, even talking about our kids too, it's, you can't, just because you're married doesn't mean the only thing you talk about is your kids. Right? Like,
and we have cool kids.
And yeah, we have really great kids. So, you have to carve out the time, and you have to be intentional with creating these boundaries. And, I think now we've kind of got, like, Ian will come in if I'm, downstairs working or doing whatever. He'll come in and, 5 minutes. He's like, I'm just grabbing some water. Let me tell you about the phone call that I just got off of. Great. Perfect. And then he's gone. Or like I'll come up and say, I just need, we have to touch base on this for 2 minutes. And we've figured out this flow that works really well, and we've gotten to a point where like, we're not offended if the other person says not now.
Yeah.
And cuts off the conversation and says, write down everything you want to talk about and we'll circle back to it at this time.
So good.
And that has helped us immensely too, because I mean, Ian is more talkative than I am. So, he could come up with an hour-long like there was one night where he just monologued until midnight, and I didn't stop him because I knew he was really excited about it and it was really fun. But like, he knew, like, I'm not going to interject, and it's literally going to be a monologue, because like for me at midnight, I'm just like, I don't have anything to say. Like I'm done. And he's perfectly happy to monologue, and it's just, and I know that he just needs to get those words out. And where in the past that probably would have created a huge fight, because
he stopped talking to me. You don't care about me. Yeah. What, it's just about our business.
But it's being honest with each other about what we need and what feels good for us individually, and how we can respect each other's boundaries in that. Working with your spouse, or even being home together all day, even if we aren't always working together it can be hard, you know, because everybody needs space differently. And, you know, so, you know, we don't make a point to sit down and have lunch together because Ian needs to just work straight through the day, and I'm not offended if he doesn't want to sit down at lunchtime. And, you know, just these little things where I think when we worked in the office, I used to get like frustrated when you wouldn't want to go walk out of the office and go have lunch, you know, but like, that's just not how he works.
My focus, if it's taken, then it takes a long time to kickstart it back up. So I think the other thing is we know what our priorities are. And our priorities are us, ourselves, our relationship, our kids, our family. That's it. And anything else comes second. Business, money, all that stuff. And so setting priorities and like really owning them and saying, you know, I'm not going to work today because I made a commitment to the family, and I'm not pissed off about that. And I'm not worried that I'm going to lose business, or if somebody doesn't want to work with me because I'm spending time with my family, like I got really clear on that. Remember the two? I'm not going to say their names. But like, remember the two? Like, I went on a listing appointment once during this transition phase of us growing together and growing ourselves to grow the partnership. And I remember for the first time, like they said, can you come back tomorrow at 6 p.m. and get this listing signed? And I said, sorry, I can't. Is there a reason why you wouldn't sign it tonight? Like, you want to go with me? And they're like, well, we want to interview one more agent. And I said, but if you know you want to go with me, why do you need to interview one more agent? And they said, just come back tomorrow. This is a big commission. You earned it. They were a for sale by owner. And I worked really hard to get in there. And I said, I can't. And in the past, I would have called Mary and be like, hey, blow that off. I got a deal. It's $25,000. It's the most important thing. But what I realized was, even though it's important to our family to make $25,000, what I was saying to her was, you're not more important than money or our business, or these people you don't even know just got your slot tomorrow that I committed to you. And I looked at the husband and I said, I can't, man. Sorry. And if that means I don't get the deal, I don't get the deal. I got to honor this commitment. He goes, what do you got that's so important over a $25,000 commission? And I said, a date night with my wife. And the wife started crying. And she looked at the husband and said, if you had treated me like that, we wouldn't be getting divorced. Give me that paperwork. And she signed it. And I wound up selling their house. And I'm still friends with them today. I texted the one that like a week ago. I mean, and I honored that. And in that moment, I realized how the error of my ways, and I course corrected very quickly. And now all of a sudden I set a schedule. Like when I train real estate agents, I'll say, don't ask them when they're available. Say, I'm available on Wednesday at 4 or Thursday at 5. Which one works best for you? And if they go, neither, you go, okay, well, let's look at next week. And they go, oh, you don't have any more time? You go, no, I have a very busy schedule. I'm very structured. I keep a very tight calendar. Those are the times I'm available to meet with you. You don't work weekends? No, that's family time. Like, you can honor that, then you're going to get people that respect you, not just you as some commodity that they can trade because you didn't work for them or work out for them, or it's not convenient. And I learned that vital piece. The other piece is we put a lot of structure in place for the main categories of our lives that we are putting our resources in, our time, money, and energy, right? Those are the resources we have, time, money, and energy. And so most Sundays, not last Sunday, but most Sundays.
Not last Sunday.
We did?
Yes.
Oh, not the Sunday before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most Sundays, like 3 out of 4, we have a weekly planning structure, which, by the way, I have it on a document. If anybody wants it who's listening, just write to share. I'll send that over too. A weekly planning structure. Our marriage, or our personal, our marriage, our kids' education, our money, our investments, our health, like those are main pieces. There's like 6 of them. Main categories where our resources go. We need to make sure we're on the same page with those. Where's our money going? Where's our bills? What's our expenses? Where are we investing? What's our business doing? What's coming in? What's next steps? What are our kids doing? What's their education look like? Do they need anything? And it's structured, because emotion can't come into a structure or a formula. There's no emotion when you say, like, these are the 6 main areas. Do you agree? Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, we both agree. So there's no emotional, no like, yeah, but you chose them and I want to choose them. We both agree to not be immature. You know what I mean? We both agree to say, like, in the present moment, you're the best you. You're not the 4 years ago you that hurt this person, or the 20 years ago you that got traumatized. In that present moment, like Mary was talking about, you're the real you. Because in the present moment, the future and the past don't exist. Anxiety and depression don't live in the present. So in that present moment, you're just being you and they're being them, and you can just have a great conversation. So putting some structure together so it's not like Wild West, and understanding your priorities, I think, have been major for me.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
No.
I
So
would agree.
good. So good. I've loved this conversation so much. I know you have a pickup to do very soon
yeah.
at school. And so before we end our conversation together, because I could just keep going and going for a couple more hours here, is there anything else you want to share that you didn't have a chance to share just yet?
There's a lot.
I know, right?
I mean, there's so
We're just
much.
getting started,
Like,
aren't we?
as much as Mare doesn't believe that she's an expert in this, like, listen to her. Like, that
Yeah,
power.
right?
I'm so proud of you. You did such a great job with this. You just don't realize it. Like, you're so good on here. And Sherry would be
So
like,
good.
"Hey man, your wife's a dud. I'm cutting her apart."
No!
Sherry's no.
What a
No, I'm
badass
saying,
Mare, really. Like,
you really
so
are.
proud.
Like,
Yeah,
you should
big
listen
time.
back to this. I know you don't like listening.
I don't
but,
like listening to them.
You
No.
did such a good job. I'm looking at you. I'm like, girl, look at that power you're wielding. Jesus, I'm going to back off.
So good.
So, no, I mean, I think we said so much. People need to digest this kind of like
Yeah.
massive information. And remember, it took us years to do
Yeah.
this, and it's distilled down into these, maybe Mare's are sentence fragments. Mine are more like a little longer, a little more
I
monologue.
would say mine are concise sentences.
Yours are concise sentences.
Yours are
Mine
run-on.
Mine are run-on monologues. But you have to make a commitment. I'm either in this relationship or I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm either committed to me, my body, my eating, or not. Like,
Right.
if you have discipline, then you have discipline in everything. Like you said earlier, how you do anything is how you do everything. You can't have discipline with one thing and not with another. You either have discipline or you don't. And so if you decide that you have discipline, then you have discipline in every area of your life. And you got to figure out what that looks like, because you just, it's not that you don't have discipline. It's that you haven't been being disciplined. That's all. It's just a shift. And so like, you got to make that commitment. I'm either in or I'm out. I'm committed to making my body the healthiest it can be, or I'm not.
Right.
There's no cheat days. Like, people ask me all the time, like, you eat the same thing every day. You like, you don't want anything else. I'm like, of course I want other things, but I have a commitment and an obsession over, like, I have Crohn's disease. I don't want the pain. I don't want future issues. I know what I have to eat. And I use, like my dad said, channel those innate gifts you have that you think are bad. But like, that level of obsession goes to my diet. And so like, you just have to make decisions. I'm either all in or all out. There's no straddle the line. You can't straddle the line in everything you do, or you're half in, half out on everything. So mainly with marriage, mainly with the body, like, you either doing it or not doing it. You either want that result or you don't. And you make that decision. And then if you make the decision to go get that body or go get that marriage that you want, then you need to then step back and say, now, who do I need to become to have that and to sustain that? Because the person I am today, like I say this to guys all the time, I want this marriage. They go, great. You're not the guy that can have that. You want to make $1 million next year? You're not the person that can do that.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not. The formula you run is not the person that can do that. So why don't you go become that guy by eliminating the pieces that aren't him? Because the real him can get that, or the real her can get that. You want that body? Then give up the cheat days that last 3 days.
Right.
Give up the mindset, because that's the old you. The person you need to become who can get that body doesn't believe in cheat days. Cheat day is like trying. It's never going to work out for you. You don't try and get a good body. You either, like, you get a good body or you don't. Like, your body's not because you just kind of sometimes work out. Like, you get that from commitment and making a decision. The root word, right, is decide, to cut off.
Yeah.
Right? If you make a decision, that means you cut off the other choices and you go for that. And if you can't do it, then you need to become the person that can. I'll end there.
So good.
Well, I can roll this thing for 3 hours.
Ian,
I love this stuff.
Keep going.
So good. I heard so many amazing things today, and I heard that you have to decide, and you have to commit, and you have to be so incredibly clear, and you have to be flexible, and you have to be adaptable, and you have to set intentions around everything that you want to create, and especially when it comes to your relationship together, and it's something that you both work on, that you're 100% in at all times. Yeah. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation today. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you to learn more about you, or maybe even grab some of those offers that you made for us today, where can they go to do that?
They can DM me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest. Just at Ian Lobas, IANLOBAS. Or Mare's at MSnowLow.
Perfect.
MSNOLO. And that's it's probably the easiest way, or private message me on Facebook. And that's or I think my other email works. Ian@irreplacableman.com. That works too.
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We're going to add all that to the show notes. Thank you again so much for your time, Ian and Meredith. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, Sherry.